Good morning, you guys. Here's a story of a knit named Dustland who was busy being knit for 4 months. Na 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 na. You know what's really funny about that? If you don't know what song that is, wow. Okay, so anyway, but look at my hair. Who does this remind you of? It's a little Carol Brady haircut, you guys.
Some say it's like Susan Plachette, Sandy Duncan, you bet. But we know it's a Brady Bunch do that you've got on your head.
Hello, Dustland episode. You guys, how are you? It's me. It's Shannon. I didn't even do my intro right. This is Sheepless Needles, vegan podcast, not about being vegan, where we do all sorts of fun stuff. We sing about the Bradys. We sing about knitwear. We, talk about gaming. We drink coffee this morning. Sometimes I imbibe. I'm not going to lie. The majority of times, this is an alcoholic beverage, but it is way too early in the morning for that, people. Cheers. Anyway, grab yourself a Proyac, pull up a chair. Let's hang out. Let's talk. Let's talk means I'm going to talk. First and foremost, let's do a little business. A little business up front, party in the back. You guys, the baby blanket episode. I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you who watched it. I don't care if it was 2 minutes you watched, the whole thing you watched, if you commented, if you laughed, if you cried, if you thumbs up, if you thumbs down. I don't even care. You guys are the best people on the planet. You warmed my heart. You warmed other people's hearts. I love you guys. I love this community. I love I'm filled with love, okay? Because of you. However, I do want to address one thing so that my family doesn't murder me. A lot of people, and by a lot of people, probably like 3, asked me why no one from the shower called me during the shower to be like, where the hell are you? Well, I think that kind of happened, and I just didn't, I missed the assignment, apparently. Because that Saturday morning when I was doing my chores around the house, which is like, cleaning up after the bunnies, whatever, you know what weekend chores are. My mother-in-law texted me to ask me, are you coming to the shower? And I texted back, was like, yeah, just tell me when and where. And she was like, yeah, 1:00 at blah, 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 blah. Well, no one said Saturday or Sunday, so I still assumed it was Sunday. But I'm guessing that was the where are you? But I really don't think that text came in after 1. I thought it was like 11 in the morning, but I'm probably totally wrong because my sense of time when I'm cleaning is out the window. Like, I'm not paying attention. So I do feel like there was a touchdown of like, hey, shower, you, and I was completely oblivious, which makes the story even worse. But I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, so because people were concerned, like, why did no one tell you or call you? I think that was it. The other part of that would be like when I went on the pub crawl, 2 of the wonderful people who were at the shower were at the pub crawl, and they were like, they both thought I was mad about something, and I really wasn't, and I felt horrible about that. So I kind of talked to them about what happened, and they understood, and I mean, everybody had a good laugh about it. Everyone who I've talked to about it has shared a story where they have done something similar, and some of the stories were super funny. Some of the stories were a little tragic. Some of the stories, wedding rings, were a little pricey, but all in the sense that we've all been there. So again, thank you guys. I love our community. I love us. But let us get into the meat and potatoes, or the seitan and potatoes of this episode, which is, ta-da, the Dustland sweater. Stephen West pattern. Oh. Okay. You guys, I cast this project on February 2nd. Promptly got really ill, knocked myself out of the game for a really long time. However, I cast off this wonderful beast of a sweater on June 9th. So, like 4 months of knitting. Listen, for me, that's really good. I'm really happy with how it came out. And we're going to talk about a couple things. But let's just start at the beginning. And the beginning is, as it is with a lot of my projects, Premier, anti-pilling. But this time it wasn't DK, it's worsted weight. And you guys, I'm not really sure. I take that back. I am really sure. It's too early in the morning. Worsted for Premier, I almost wish I had used DK on this. And that's okay. You live, you learn. This is just a little bit more cushy than the DK. Yeah. And I guess that's normal for worsted, so I don't know why I'm making a big deal of that. But I'm just saying, in my case, as you will see, probably should have used DK, but that's okay. All right, so, have you ever filmed yourself or seen photos of yourself and you see an imperfection that you don't see in person, but you see it on camera? Yeah, well, I'll fix that later. Anyway, okay, so I cast the sweater on. I used Premier Anti-Pilling DK in Fern and Deep Teal. And I was wrong. If you remember me talking about this being the baby blanket color, it's not. It's very similar, but it's off by like 2 values. So it's probably got, I'd say 1 value. It's probably got 10% more white in it on the baby blanket. Very odd. I should have had a sample to show you, but I don't. So, Okay, so anyway, yarns. I could not tell you how many skeins I used, but I think I used 6 of the Fern and 2 of the Teal, and this is what I have left over. So really, I would say 1 of these, 5 1/4 of these. Okay, so I have no complaints about the yarn. We know I love this yarn. It is wonderful to work with. It's 100% acrylic. I am going to stand by my statement. People think I'm a Stephen West fan, but I am. But apparently I'm also a Premier Anti-Pilling fan person because that's the yarn that I love the most when we're talking about budget yarns. I'm going to gamble and say anytime you see me in something and it is not like a hand-dyed indie yarn, it's going to be Premier Anti-Pilling, either DK or worsted. I wish they had, and maybe they do and I just haven't found it, an anti-pilling fingering, but I have never seen one, so whatever. I knit it on my Addy Rocket squares, 5, 6s, and 7s, and we'll get into the 5, 6s, and 7s in a little bit. Favorite needles again. So this sweater was so much fun to knit. Part of it is probably just me giving up on I don't want to say tension when I knit, but like worrying about imperfections and just moving on. It was just fun to knit. Part of that is Stephen West and the pattern writing. The Dustland pattern repeat is so good. I mean, like, it is a beginner level repeat. So I know, just in case you're overwhelmed by doing a sweater and you kind of like the pattern repeats, there is a hat, there is a shawl, there's a cardigan sweater, and I may or may not be right or wrong about this, but I think he's doing socks and maybe either gloves or mitts or something. It is such a fabulous pattern. It's so much fun. It has a lot of visual interest to it, obviously. And there are 3 main repeats that you just keep doing. And they're just intuitive. You can look down and be like, oh, this is where I'm at. Like, it's just good. It's just really good. I think a beginner could do the Dustland patterns. I don't know if I would say a beginner should take on like a sweater, only because it has short row shaping in the shoulders. and splitting for the sleeves. I think if you have a little bit of knitting under your belt, you're totally fine. I think if this is your very first thing you've ever picked up and knit, might be a little much. But I mean, to each his own. I know people who their first project, like, do I have my first project? Okay, we're going to digress for 1 second. And we know me, I always go off the rails. So this is rails number 1. Do you see all Do you remember me telling you about the moth I found in the basement? And I was like, oh, hell no. So I brought all my yarn up, you guys, and I organized it. I think I took photos of it during the progress. And if I did, Mr. Editor, I think I did, put some up. But the way I organized it is, as you're looking at it, the first stack is my fingering weight. The middle, here. First stack is fingering weight. Second stack is sport and DK. And third stack is some leftover DK forward to bulky. I've got a lot of sport weight and DK. But anyway, why was I telling you about organizing the yarn? I told you I went off the rails. I haven't had enough coffee yet, you guys. Oh, my first project. Oh my God. Okay, I don't care what you're drinking, but you need a drink, because my ass is, we're already out of here, and we're what, 10 minutes in? Okay, so my very first project I picked was this. And I forget the name of this pattern, but it's lace work. Can you see? Now, this is the very first thing I ever knit. Literally, this is it. And this, I thought I had lost this. And it's with a beautiful yarn that I can't remember the name of, that if I remember the name, I think it's Oricania or Oricania or something like that. And I remember when I went and bought the yarn as a brand new knitter, I went to a local yarn store, first time in a local yarn store, and it was the last time I went to a local yarn store for years, because I was treated like garbage. And why was I treated like garbage? Because guess what this is? This is cotton and linen.
You need to use wool for that pattern.
My very first project. And I told them I'm not using animal fibers, which they did not understand. Now, here's the deal. Fast forward, that store is gone. It is closed. They did not make it. And I've been to other yarn stores and not treated like that. So it was just out the gate, a tough first project, horrible experience at a yarn store, yada, yada, yada. So my point being is, I picked a really hard project. Listen, for this being, we're not going to talk about the fact that it's too small, but that's okay. That was my first run at knitting, you guys. So if you want to take it on, take it on. I think it's about, if you really want to try something, you're going to try it. I don't think labeling things beginner, advanced beginner, intermediate and advanced, I don't think that should be the reason why you should or should not knit something. That's just my opinion. I think what I will say is, if you're picking an advanced stitching pattern or lace work, be patient with yourself. That's all I'm going to say, because we all know. Anyway, back to the sweater. I do think, again, any level can knit this. It's just a matter of taking your time, and never ever feel bad about what I don't even call it cheating. Listen, use the YouTubes. Look up tutorials. The other day I was casting off the project that you can't even see it. It's back on the corner of my vanity. That is the next vlog that'll be posted sometime next month. But it had a 3-needle bind off. You guys, I totally forgot how to do those. And I was like, why don't I remember this? So I looked it up. I think I used Roxanne Richardson's 3. I'll put it in the show notes if I can find the video I watched in my YouTube history. But I did a little refresher and I was good to go. So don't ever feel bad about stopping in the middle of what you're doing and double checking what you're doing. We all have to do it. So anyway, back to the sweater. I knit it in size 3. I knew I wanted to knit a big sweater because I wanted it to be like my cozy weekend sweater when there's a snowstorm and Mr. Editor has built a fire, and we're in the living room, and I've got my knitting, and I've got my cats on me, and I wanted a big sweater with leggings and big fluffy socks. That's what this is. I'm going to stand up again so you can see it. That is what this is, right? Now, I don't know if you can hear me all the way back here, so I'm going to shout. Here's the issue. Sleeves are all the way down here, right? So if I ruche up the sleeves and then kind of do that, it'll bring the armpits up. So here's my statement. For it to be a sweater that I'm going to wear on the weekends, like with a fire, it's fine. Would I wear this out to dinner? No, probably not. But happy accidents, you guys, happy accidents. Because when I cast it off and I tried it on, it was like, oh crap, the armpits are real low. And I tried it on as I was going, but the continual weight of the sweater pulled the armpits down a little bit. I didn't think it was going to pull them down that much. But here's the happy accident. I try it on. My husband's like, oh my gosh, that's great. I was like, can you try it on for me? It fits him like a glove. It fits him perfectly. So this is technically going to be Mr. Editor's sweater, and it looks so good on him, you guys. He probably won't let me take a picture of him in it. If he does, Mr. Editor will put it up. But here's the deal. Mr. Editor has some baby blues going on. You know you do, Mr. Editor, and don't be fluttering them at me, Mr. Flirt. His eyes are like, anyway, it looks so good on him. Rekindling a little romance when he puts it on. Although, I'm going to tell you something. Godspeed and good luck that I can keep this sweater on for the rest of this podcast, because I am so hot right now. It's warm. And that's the one thing. When Mr. Editor tried it on, he was like, oh, it's really warm. Do you remember the scene in Better Off Dead where the mom makes Lane and his dad the reindeer furry outfits, and they have to put them on while they're opening the Swanson TV dinners? And David Ogden Stiers, who plays the dad, is like, it's very warm.
Now, everyone's going to be wearing one of these this year.
What have you done?
It's real aardvark fur.
Really? Oh, well, honey, it's sure warm.
Now for the best part, oh, the hood.
Everybody's going to be wearing one of these.
That's what this is like. Like, my armpits are questionable right now. I'm just saying. Okay, so this was size 3. Size 3, I think, was for a 42-inch chest, which obviously, you guys, I'm not a 42-inch chest. Let's be real. Apparently, my Mr. Editor husband is. So this sweater will now be his, and I will be borrowing it on snowy days to sit on the couch. That's it. There you go. There's the sizing drama. So, given that, watch your sizing. And the other thing I would tell you is, if you are using like an acrylic for this, I would not recommend cotton. All right, here's what I'm going to say. If you're going to knit a smaller size and you have a lightweight cotton that's fingering weight, and by lightweight, I'm just, you know what I mean. There are some cottons that just weigh heavier than others. If you are using a heavier cotton, regardless of weight, you're going to get great stitch definition on the pattern, because cotton stitch definition is incredible. The issue I think you're going to run into is if you are knitting the sweater long, like you're not going to crop it or anything, and you can knit it to whatever length you really want. The weight of the cotton is going to pull the yoke down. So just keep that in mind, which is what happened here. So if you're going to do that, I would recommend ending the yoke one pattern repeat earlier than is called for in the pattern. I wish I had done that. It wouldn't solve this completely for me, but it would have brought up the arms a little bit. But now that I've said that, it probably wouldn't fit Mr. Editor if I had. So I don't know. If you're sizing up because you want it to be a big sweater, adjust your yoke. Unless you've got if you got chesticles that are like pronounced, maybe you don't need to. If you are like me, that you're a little bit like not much going on up here, you're going to need to adjust the yoke. And I'm going to say that for me, anything I knit top-wise for apparel, I usually do have to adjust something because I'm flat-chested. And if you look on, there's a weird mix of like pictures for patterns, but it's one of two things. It's either really busty people or like really, really thin, non-chested people. I'm not either one of those. Average weight, no chest, right? And so I have to kind of meet in the middle when I read a pattern to figure out like, okay, I'm flat chested. Can I even pull this off? And a lot of times there's patterns and it can be frustrating that I just know if you don't have a chest, it's not going to look good, which leads me to the next thing, which is menswear knitting is perfect for me. But there's just not a lot. I mean, there's a lot more patterns for men now than there used to be. And I just kind of wish we got to a point where there were just, I don't know. It doesn't, all I'm saying is, what am I? I'm going to drink my coffee. Sometimes you have to look at your body shape and look at what you want to knit and be like, is this going to work? I'm not sure. I may have to adjust it. And move on about your business. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the pattern. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It just means sometimes you have to change things. I did not change this. This will work for Mr. Editor, yada, yada, yada. Wow. Mr. Editor, you're going to need to edit that down because that was a really long-winded way of saying check your chest measurement. Okay, so as I was knitting this, here's the... I should have done it too long, didn't read, but I didn't. As I was knitting this, I'm going to say probably in the last week and a half that I was knitting it, and I would knit it maybe on it for like an hour a night, if even that. I was sitting on the couch watching Critical Role, as I do, and I was like, wow, this sweater's gone really well. It really has. And the way I approached it was, obviously it's a top-down yoke sweater. And I would say when I got down to close to where I wanted to start the blue hem on the bottom, I was like, well, maybe I'll go ahead and start the arms because I'd rather try to finish everything all at once. So my theory was I will do a pattern repeat on the arm and I'll do 2 or 3 rounds on the body and just go back and forth. Because you know what it's like when you're working an arm, it's real quick because it's a smaller circumference. And then if you have to go back to the body, it's like, wow, it's the Olympics of finishing the body and you're just like over it. So I was trying to balance that out so it was like easy breezy, you know? So as I'm doing that, and everything was going really well. I didn't have any like major hiccups knitting this. There was no frogging, there was no tinking, there was no nothing. So I finished the one arm, and I think it was this arm, and everything's great. I can't remember. I don't remember what. I think I just cast off in pattern on the cuff. I didn't do a stretchy bind off or anything. I mean, it's just a standard. There's nothing crazy there. And I can fold back the cuff too. I did it long enough to do that. Oh, you guys, I am so hot right now. I might have to take the sweater off and change because I'm literally dying right now. Okay, we're gonna pause this. I will be right back. You guys, worse than a hot flash. Okay, so arms. So I finished the first arm. Everything's good to go. I'm still working on the hem, doing a couple rounds at a time. I pick up the next sleeve. I'm doing, repeats, couple rounds, repeats, couple rounds. Listen, I tracked my decreases, no issues. I did have to adjust the decreases a little bit, only because I didn't have as long of a span to decrease across, but arms, not a big deal. Anyway, I'm on the second arm, I'm hitting towards the cuff, and I'm like, oh, okay, I need to decrease my needle size. I was already on my smaller needles. And then it dawned on me, I was like, wait a second. I'm supposed to be using 7s. I don't know, like the neck, I chose the neckline to do a US 5. I don't know what happened, and I could not even tell you what size needles I used on the left arm, the first arm, because I don't remember ever changing out the needle, which means the arm and the cuff are the same needle. You can't tell. It's not a big deal. But what I will say is, I don't think they're the same size as the body at all. And I don't think you can tell that either. Well, maybe a little. I don't know that you can. No one's going to pick up on this. Anyway, I just think it's funny that I sat on the couch and was like, this sweater's been a breeze. And then I looked down and I'm like, I have no idea what needles I'm using. So the arms on my Dustland sweater are knit with a mysterious needle size on one side and a smaller needle that I never changed out correctly on the other arm. But you know what? Guess what? You guys, you can't tell. And if you can tell, wow, you got some good vision. And maybe hey, listen, maybe that is the gift of having bad eyesight as I get older, that I can't see it. So there was that moment of like, oops, what are you going to do? I'm not frogging back a sleeve on that. You can't tell. Who cares? Move on. So that was my sleeve drama, which wasn't really a drama. It just made me laugh. And so then, I finished the sleeve. I'm working on the hem, and man, that's taken forever. Yada, yada, yada. I'm like, okay, I'm ready to bind off. Yes. So I decide I want to do the tubular cast off. I've done the tubular cast off before. Excuse me. I've done the tubular cast off before. I just could not remember how to do it. And I just remember it took me a really long time. So I took my own advice. I went to YouTube. I watched some videos. I was like, oh, I remember why I don't do this cast off that often. Because it takes a while. Now, I am not going to give you a tutorial. I'm just going to give you the Shannon overview of the tubular cast off. And I think it goes by another name, and I don't know what it is. But 2x2 rib. That's what I'm working in, okay? 2x2 rib. To do the tubular cast off, you want it to be a 1x1 rib. So you have to, in one round, before you actually start binding off, you are going to take your 2x2 rib and morph it into a 1x1 rib. And it's a little bit of like skipping stitches or twisting stitches and jumping stitches. Just watch a tutorial. I'm not explaining it very well. Just know that your first round is going from 2x2 rib to 1x1 rib. So I get that done. And then what you need to do is to get a measurement of your yarn. And the rule of thumb that everyone seems to kind of talk about to figure out how much yarn you need is take your project and wrap it 4 times, like whatever you're binding off, 4 times the length. And that should be enough for the tubular cast off. That should tell you already there's a lot going on in the cast off, right? So if you're somebody like me who is doing a long tail cast on and you're like almost done and you run out of yarn, you know how angry that makes you, especially if it's like cast on 100 and a gazillion stitches and you're on 100 minus 12 gazillion and you only have 5 more stitches and you have to undo it and redo the cast on. Nobody likes that. So in my head, I'm like, okay, they're saying 4 times. I'm going 6 times, you guys. I overshot. I had all this yarn that I was working with that I did not need to be working with on my long tail. Or I'm sorry, not my long tail, on my tubular cast off. So the way the tubular cast off works is it's a sewing bind off. So you're using a like a tapestry needle or whatnot. Watch a video. I am not going to explain it well. Do not be overwhelmed by it. It is a beautiful cast off. It is beautifully stretchy. It looks good. It's worth the time to do it if you do it correctly, which I did not. And here's what's funny. I had no idea. I'm binding off. I am having a good old time. It is going really well. And I probably have like 30 stitches. And why do I know that figure? Because I stopped and I counted how many stitches I had left when I realized, y'all, I bound off on the wrong side of the fabric. Now, you can't really tell. So I'm going to put up photos because this is going to be too hard for me to hold it. But when you cast off on the incorrect side, photo of incorrect bind off side, there is a bump ridge that shows up on the fabric. You really want that on the inside, not the outside. The inside just kind of rolls over the edge. And is there visibly that much of a difference between the two? Yes, to someone who knows what they're looking at. No to someone who doesn't, right? The only people who will look at this and be like, oh, you did your tubular on the wrong side, are going to be fellow knitters. And they've been there if they notice that mistake. So at 30 stitches out, I was like, screw it. I don't even care. I'm just going to finish it and go. Because at the end of the day, if I'm wearing this sweater, I don't think anyone's looking at the cast off edge. They're probably looking at how big it is. So again, who cares? I made an error of judgment and did not know. And here's the funny thing. I watched the video like 3 or 4 times. And somehow in my head, it just never sunk in that I needed to be working on the wrong side of the fabric when I cast off. So, word to the wise, if you want a perfect bind off, don't do what I did. Watch your YouTube videos and really digest them before you tackle the mountain that is the tubular cast off, which again is beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful, clean cast off. So, again, photos, whatever. You guys, here's the deal. Things are going to happen. When I was 30 stitches out from finishing, I made the decision like, I don't really care. Not only did I not care, but more to the point, I have no idea how to tink back a tubular cast off. No idea. Have you ever tinked that cast off? And if you have, put it in the show notes. Put it in the comments. Let everybody know how you did it, how long it took, and like what was your stress level. Because I feel like if I tried to tink back that cast off, my face would be bright red. I'd probably be crying. It's just not worth it to me. And I think that's how I approach a lot of my knitting, is that if it's going to make me cry, I either need to commit to it or walk away from it, right? And commit to it, I mean, like when I realized my mistake on this hem or this cast off, I was like, oh, well, I mean, no one's going to notice. I'm the only one who knows it. And I've learned a lesson that if I ever do this again, flip my fabric, lesson learned, move on. It's not a big deal. Early on, I think I probably would have been really upset with myself, but literally I laughed. I was like, oh, crap. And just went on about my business. Like it was for some knitters, this would be a huge issue. They would frog the part of the project, redo it, whatever. And for me, I was like, nope, I'm living with that because I don't care. And I don't. The knitter I was 3 years ago probably really would have cared. And that's what I find interesting is like what I care about in my projects and what I let go of. And I think everyone's different. Some people really need a perfect pattern copy, right? Like no deviations. That's just not me. If I can deviate from a rule, whether on purpose or accidental, I just naturally do. I never quite nail a pattern ever. And I do think that's just funny because I thought I had. And I hadn't. But that's just me as a knitter. I'm never going to be that perfectionist. And I'm okay with that. In fact, I really like that because it makes it mine, right? So I guess what I would say about this is you can make a major, I don't want to say mistake, but you can make a misstep in your knitting and it not be problematic to what you're doing. As long as it's not going to be like an unraveling error where like you've dropped stitches and you've got an end and you can unravel the entire project while someone's wearing it, like that I would probably address. But anything else, like, who cares? Like, you are making something that you're either going to wear or give to someone, and it's part of you. Let that beauty speak out. Like, I'm never going to be a perfect person. I don't want to be. I find the odd quirks in my personality are what make me Sheepless Needles. It's what makes me Shannon. And when I knit, those quirks are in my knitting. And that's what I love about crafting. It's a little bit of you and a little bit of the world at large in one fell swoop, right? I love that. I love it. I love it. I love it. So don't ever let a bad bind off set you in the doldrums, because your bad bind off is like perfect to me, right? Like, and that's how most people view things. So anyway, that's my spiel about the bind off. You guys, that's my Dustland sweater. So I hope that whatever you're knitting on, whatever you're crafting on, that you're putting a little piece of yourself in it. In not a gross way. I didn't mean it that way. Get your head out of the gutter. I just mean, like, I hope you love it. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes any sense. Who knows? Anyway, look forward to the next vlog, because it will be a finished project that's back there that I'm not going to tell you about now, that I went on a journey with, and we'll get there. So, that's it. That's all I got. That's it. I know, right? Okay. I love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care of yourselves. Take care of one another. Love yourself. Love one another. You've got Florence Henderson hair.
I want to look like Mrs. Brady. Da, 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 da.